Hello, this is Allie with the Perception Trainers, author of The Perception Diet, and today we are going to talk about the difference between the ego, the inner child, and all the crazy confusion that goes along with that. So I really wanted to make a video today on why I lost my ego and that's what makes me spiritually awakened isn't true. But I realized we need to have a bit of a pre-game video with some understandings before we get there. So the next video, I am going to talk about the ego and ego death and why I don't personally believe that when people say I've lost my ego, that means that they're enlightened, and that enlightenment is forgetting that you are a person, or that you're, or this understanding that nothing is real, it's all fake, my personality is fake, the reality is fake, it's all not real, and that's being enlightened. Not to say that that's wrong, as in that we shouldn't experience that, or that that isn't a part of the journey, but I don't think that that's all the way there. But anyways, we're going to get into that in the next video. In this video, I want to talk about the difference between the ego and the inner child, and how we're confusing the two most of the time in the spiritual world, and what the whole point is with the ego and the inner child, so that in the next video, when I talk about truly what transcendence is and how we're never going to get rid of the ego, it will make more sense, okay? So most people in today's world still really think the ego is this bad thing. It's this negative, immature, jealous, fearful, angry, negative emotions, negative thoughts, overly identified with the body, vain, survival-oriented part of ourselves, right? This is our ego. And some people, we definitely have some psychological definitions of the ego, which is simply that the ego is the personality, right? It's the individual expression of who you are. And so we kind of have these two definitions of ego, right? It's in the spiritual world, it tends to be the ego is all the negative things about yourself that you don't like. That's your individual self, anything that's against unity and anything that's jealous or negative or painful, that's the ego. And then within the psychological realm, we tend to define the ego more as just the personality, who you are, the id, right? The aspect of you that makes you different from everybody else. And in the spiritual world, we also have this idea of the inner child, right? This part of you that right now people define it as the playful, happy, fun, excited, joyful, exuberant, creative part of you. And that it is through the maturation process that we lose touch with the inner child, become more and more this spiritual ego, which is the negative, fearful, fear-based, da-da-da-da-da. And in order to mature spiritually, we need to get rid of the ego, become more like the inner child, but then lose our awareness of consciousness or of individuality altogether. Yeah? And I mean to put that in a way that sounds confusing, because that is basically what people are saying without saying it, right? We're saying it in all these very spiritual, convoluted ways so that we don't think of it like that, but that's essentially what spiritual people are saying. It's like, forget that you exist, realize none of this exists, and then be that fun, playful child who identifies with nothing, but is still creative and fun and excited, but not connected to anything, but is infinitely connected to everything. Okay, so we can see how that's a little bit confusing. So today I want to just give some base definitions of what I think is the true breakdown of how this all happens. And so that in my next video, when we talk about why you don't exist isn't a true teaching, essentially, will make sense. Okay? So what I think is fundamental is that what I'm going to call the ego from here on out is the fractal of God that you represent. Okay? Unity is a fact. All of consciousness is connected. There is no true dividing line. Okay? Not in ultimate understanding, not in ultimate reality. All of consciousness is one big thing. And again, I know that I do this, and it makes it seem like there's then something on the outside, but that doesn't make sense. So like in one of my other videos, I just did a head movement. All of consciousness is connected to itself. It is one big thing in and of itself. It's everything. It's isness. It's everything that isn't. Consciousness is. It's the isness. Yes? Each one of us in a human body, right here, right now, represents a fractal, a part, a piece, an individual strand of an ultimately false but sort of true boundary piece of all that consciousness is. That is what the ego is. The ego is one little aspect of the everything that is here to express as itself, so that the all that is, consciousness, the whole thing, can learn fully about itself through the experiential experience of playing it out. That's what this earth experience is. And we're going to talk about it more in the next video, but that's it. The ego is simply the part of you that is the fractal of God. You came here to represent, to learn about itself, to add to the consciousness, to add to consciousness awareness of itself. That's all it is. That's what ego is. So your individual, unique personality is real. It's real in the sense that it is a part of all that is. So it's like the same thing in the body. The body is truly one unit. It is one thing that works together. Everything plays together. It's completely unified. There's no part that's not connected to the other part. Yeah? However, in order for us to even understand how the body works, if we were to have one amalgamous blob, no organs, no tissues, no cells, everything was just blip, we could never understand it. We would never know how it functioned, because without those boundaries, without the liver being the liver and doing what the liver does, different from the kidneys, we would have no idea that the body has to filter things. You see? So it is through this experience of being individuals that we're learning, that we can learn. If it was all connected, there was no dividing line, we could not learn. Consciousness could not know about itself because there would be nothing to compare it to. Yeah? It had to make lines in order to understand itself. It had to make boundaries. It had to make divisions. And that's what the ego is. It's like the liver. You're still intimately a part of the body. You are not separate from it. The liver is the body. But it's separate so that it can learn. It can be something that we can understand. Okay? So that's that. The inner child is what most people are labeling as the spiritual ego. The immature, scared, emotional, angry, possessive, triggered, traumatized, wounded aspect of the self. That is the aspect of God that you are, that you represent, that forgot everything on purpose. Okay, this is not a bad thing. We're not wanting to say the inner child is wrong or that the child experience is bad, because it isn't. It's exactly what we needed. It's exactly what we called for. If you haven't watched the last video, please do that. But that's what that is. Truly, 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 the inner child is the part of ourselves that has not, in experience, matched the understanding, the frequency, the ultimate manifestation of the fractal of God that your ego is. All right? That's all the inner child is. The inner child is the part of you that is stuck in trauma, not understanding how the reality functions, and that feels like a victim. And that makes perfect sense, because all of us came into a human body, forgot everything, and had a victim experience in our childhood. We were literally victims for the first several years of our lives. And this is something we need to fully understand. is that that is what childhood is. You are victim to your caretakers. You are. You have no capacity to care for yourself. You have no capacity to survive without somebody else helping you. And if we understand, again, that one of, if not the, points of life is to fully know who and what you are as this individual fractal of God and to express it, of course, survival is going to be a huge part of that. Because if you die, you can't express, right? If you die, you have to come back again, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, we want to survive because in order to express, we need to be alive. We need to be in the experience. We need to be having this 3D experience in order to have the fully expressing who I am, fractal of God, so that I can learn about it, experience. Yeah? And so this is why that primal consciousness is one of survival. Because in order to have all these higher experiences of fully realizing yourself and then expressing that, you have to survive. You have to be alive. So that's that. We come into these bodies and survival is at stake because we are victim to our parents. We're victim to our caretakers. We're victim to whoever is looking after us when we're small. And then at the same time, we are victims to culture. We're victims to what is determined as right and wrong behavior, what is determined as a good and bad way of being. We're victims to judgment. We're victim to this oppressive society. We're victim to all of these things. And again, we're going to get into this in the next video, how none of that is wrong. But just right now, just to understand that, okay? So now, any part of you that did not wake up to the idea as you grew up that you are no longer a victim, that you now have the power to survive on your own, that you now have the capacity to love and accept everything that you are, even if everyone else rejects you, that you now have the ability to choose yourself, to choose who you are, even if the culture doesn't like that, even if you're rejected, even if you're crucified, you still can choose your own freedom. You still can wake up to your autonomy, that no one can make you think, feel, do, be anything. You get to choose. If you don't wake up to that, which most of us haven't, you stay with little parts of yourself stuck in childhood. All right? So any part of you that doesn't know how to communicate, that doesn't know how to ask for what you want, that doesn't know how to access your inner resource of love and security and self-soothing, that doesn't know how to express who you are even if no one else likes it, that feels like you need to manipulate the reality, that feels like you need to manipulate yourself in order to get what you want, that feels like there can be good and bad experiences, that feels like there can be good and bad people, that feels like there are good and bad energies, there's polarity, there's things that you want to have happen and things that you don't want to have happen and that you have to manifest. That's all child psychology. All right? If there's any part of you that believes that love comes from the outside, that you don't have access to it from within, that is childlike psychology. And we know this. We know this from studying children. That is what a child is someone who does not understand their autonomy, someone that does not understand their independence, someone that does not understand who they are as separate from other people, and someone who does not have inner resource. That's what a child psychology is. So you can see now that we've been mislabeling these things. The inner child is simply any part of you that is not mature yet. And the ego is the part of you that is God, that is on this maturation process, right? That is growing from a child to an adult who knows all this stuff. That's what I believe to be awakening, is simply your awareness that you're an adult, that you have power. You are a creator. You get to choose what you do with what comes to you. You get to say no, you get to say yes. People can do whatever they want. No one can make you do, be, say, think, feel anything. You are in control. You are of you. You are in control of you. You may not be in control of the everything, but you are absolutely in control of how you react. You are absolutely in control of how you perceive it. You are absolutely in control of how you respond. You are in control. That is what the ego is. So now, the playfulness, the creativity, the fun, the lightness, the joy, that's not the inner child. That's divinity. All right? Children have that because they just came from where they were connected to that. You see what I'm saying here? When children represent playfulness, creativity, inspiration, excitement, fun, that's a more actually mature understanding of this human experience that we're having. That is just an experience. It's not so heavy. It doesn't mean so much about us. It's not real in the sense that it's absolutely set in stone, this is how it is, and this means a whole bunch of stuff about me. They are here to play and to experience, and it's just the joy of the experience. Like, holy shit, we're having an experience. I'm a soul that used to be all head, that was just 100% awareness, and now I'm experiencing stuff in the 3D reality. Oh my gosh, that's divinity. That creativity, that inspiration, that fun, that excitement for what's going to come next, that's not child psychology. That's divine psychology. You see what I'm saying here? Child psychology is fear. Child psychology is I'm the victim and I don't know what to do. Child psychology is I have no say, and when things happen, it's either good or bad, and I have to manipulate myself or my reality to try and make things good. That's child psychology. So the point of what I'm trying to say here is this. Awakening, and we're going to get into this in the next video, but I'm just going to plant the seed now. Awakening is maturing your inner child. Awakening is maturing your inner child. That's all it is. You're taking your inner child, all the parts of you that are stuck in trauma, that are stuck in fear, that are stuck in victimization, that act that way now. Someone comes and says something to you, you get very upset. You're jealous. You're angry. Someone has something, that means I'm not going to get something. Something bad happens, that means I can't be happy. There's all these rules, and I don't really understand how it works, so I need the law of attraction. I need all this superstition. I need to pray to angels. I need to pray to God. I need to blah, 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 because I don't know how it works, and I hope someone will love me, and I hope someone will save me. That's child psychology, right? What we're here to do is access using the ego, right? Using the divine psychology that we all have access to go into that inner child, to love them, to nurture them, to go through the process of allowing them to feel upset about what they went through, allowing them to imagine it have gone different, to get them to a place where they can be in the absolute pain and suffering and struggle of this is what happened. And then come to this place of learning how to embrace what happened as exactly what needed to happen so that we could mature and then become who we came here to be. And then start to express that. We will discover that as we mature this inner child, we don't lose creativity, joy, fun, excitement, playfulness. We actually gain that stuff. Because again, that's divine psychology. That's the divinity, that's the thread of divinity that we all carry. That's the same within all of us. And at the same time, you will become more of an individual who is aware of your connection to everything. Okay, like this is the paradox. And again, we're going to talk about this more in the next video. You mature the inner child. You start to see yourself more and more and more who you are in your power, in your strength. And at the same time, it's going to show you your connection to absolutely everything. How you are not cut off. And all that childhood fear of I'm cut off, which is really all that is, right? The inner child is the part of you that believes it can be cut off. Let's put it that simple way. As you mature that, the divine psychology and your ego of who you are, who you came here to be, come more and more and more into the forefront, and you are happy, you are satisfied, you can see everything that happens in your life as happening for a reason, you are no longer a victim, and people will say to you, you are enlightened, because that's what that looks like. You will be a mature adult who knows yourself and knows the divine as one. Okay, so if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those down below. like, share, subscribe, and definitely be sure to tune into the next video. All right? Mwah.